It's Jake at Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well. Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a great time, had a great Christmas, Yule, whichever you celebrate. Had a great New Year, either staying in or going out to your favourite pub, bar. And here is episode 12 of My Metal Vault. If you've been watching this series for a while, you know the drill. I'll be exploring and showing you my favourite albums within heavy metal, thrash metal, death metal, black metal, doom metal, sludge metal, folk metal, you name it, all that excellent stuff. And I thought for this first one of the new year, I am filming this on the 1st of January. So once you do see this, it will be out on the days that I have these scheduled. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Here is a band from Sweden. They later went to Stockholm, but they were at a place, and a mate of mine did tell me, I think it was a little town, province, I can't remember it, called Kronenberg. Could be completely wrong now. I have to look up the comment on my favorite metal underground releases, the Swedish episode. And here's a band that obviously has members who went on to form other bands, had bands before, and so on and so forth. And you know this band as soon as you see it. This is Carnage, and this is their only album. They formed in 1988, disbanded in 1990, and before that, they released this, Dark Recollections. And what an album this is. If you haven't heard it, it's just pure, heavy, Swedish death metal at its absolute finest. Of course, this is a re-release because it's got their demos on here, which I will get up here. So The Day Man Lost, Infestation of Evil are the bonus tracks. One on here is a rough mix. Rough mixes from that demo that I'll show you here. And you're going to know half of these faces. Of course, we got let me just get the booklet out so we can have a look for ourselves. Where we do have Mate Kargi. I think just said his name wrong, but Mate, the vocalist of Dismember. Of course, there's David, who, of course, from Dismember of it as well. Fred Epsby of Dismember. Johnny, who went on to become the vocalist for Entomb, of course, was not on the Clandestine album, and was in a ton of other bands before that, hasn't done anything since. And of course, Michael Amott, who went on to join Carcass and form Arch Enemy, still an Arch Enemy today, no longer in Carcass. He left, I think, when did he leave Carcass? In 2012. So the last time I would have saw him was, I can't think now. I think it was 1 year at Bloodstock they played. I think he played 2011. I could be wrong. Of course, he is the eldest brother of Christopher, who, of course, used to be an Arch Enemy. And I believe, and Dot Tranquility and Machine Head. Of course, we all know Machine Head. But yeah, there's the back of the booklet of all the guys in the band. The artwork, of course, I got the re-release, so that's covering the whole artwork. Of course, it is a Dan Seagrave masterpiece there. And let's get the CD. Now, I don't have to tell all you hardcore death metal fans about this album, because you're going to know this like the back of your hand, so to speak. But for anyone brand new, let me tell you about it. Now, the band Dismember, they did form in 1988. They did disband in 1989. And Carnage, of course, formed around the same time, which obviously shares, like I said, shares Fred and David and Mate. And of course, Matty's been in a ton of bands in Sweden, of course, those being General Surgery, Varian, Carbonize, Murder Squad, you name it. He's been in the band. Of course, like I said, they did the demos. The Day Man Lost from 1989, and then same year, Infestation of Evil. They did a split. Of course, this is their only album, really, which also they split it with a band from Norway called Cadaver with their album Hallucinating Anxiety, which is also a killer album. Do check it out. Of course, this was released on Earache Records, and of course, what is it? On Earache and the Croesus Records, but I do believe it was also released on Earache as well that same year. Of course, looking at the list, got a remaster in 2000, so 10 years after it came out. Of course, I think some of the bands that, like Michael, obviously went on to join Carcass and they were part of Earache. Of course, like I said, it's the re-release, so it's got the Earache record label there. They've always released good stuff. Of course, there's a little thing here that Michael talked about. And I think as well, let me get the booklet out again. You get some old school band pictures of other members who used to be in the band. Because I did talk about this band with Fred. Obviously, if you want to see the chat, I'll add that in the description below if you haven't seen it yet. Band picture there, some I think some stuff about the album. Because yeah, I'm just looking at because I was mentioning Mike Browning from Nocturnus. Because Michael Amot's talking about a lot of things here. Like obviously for the re-release. Of course, you've got the demos there, Infestation of Evil, The Day Man Lost, a band picture down there. Do apologise for my voice. I was out celebrating at the Griffin, the number one metal pub, here in Bristol. More band pictures there. I think I'll just show them anyway. I'll show them again because Johan also went on to form, if I can find him as well, Arch Enemy as well, because he was the vocalist before we had Angela, and who is the current vocalist now? Where is she? Where is she? Alicia White. Because Johan was in the band before that. Of course, there's all different members. That's not Fred. That's Jesper. I think that's how you say the names. Not good with my pronunciations. Because they were on the demos. So if I get those up quickly here for me to look at, yep, he was on, I think, on both. Yeah, on both demo. No, for the re-release of Recollections, yes. And Johan obviously was the original vocalist of Arch Enemy from 95 to 2000. Was on both of the demos for Carnage, and then there was a live Stockholm, Sweden live album of them playing on the 4th of November of '89. And he's been in a ton of other bands like Furball, Furball. Another Swedish band that I think needs to be talked about a lot. Of course, I'm mentioning the other members in the bands who used to be in others. Was not Johnny there who went on to join. Hang on, let me just get obviously went on to join Entombed. Because I think the only demo he was on, if I can get it up, here we are, was of course Infestation of Evil. Because like I say, he hasn't done anything since Entombed. Apparently he did additional vocals on track 2 of Clandestine, but he didn't do the whole album. That was obviously Nick. That was obviously Nick in the band. Nick, yeah, the drummer, obviously did all the vocals, and he was in a band called Mortal Abyss, which were a thrash metal band. But apart from that, nothing else. I've got more, like I mentioned, Carbonized earlier. There's a gig picture there. Of course, they got mentioned quite a bit in the Swedish death metal book, which I can clearly see from over here. More stuff over here. But yeah, this is for a lot of members in this band, like pre other bands, so like pre Dismember. Like I said, Dismember did form in '88, split up for a bit in '89, while Carnage was still very active. And of course, you can one because one of the songs on here, which is the first song I ever heard from this album, is Torn Apart. That's one of my favorites, of course. Blasphemies of the Flesh, Infestation of Evil. Um, excuse me. I mean, the whole album's killer, but if I'm going to pick my three favorite tracks, it's tracks 2, 3, and 4. Killer Swedish death metal, again at its finest, and I've said this before. It's a timeless masterpiece. I've got overlooked quite a lot because obviously there was more death metal bands releasing albums around that time, and like once because like bands like Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, Morbid Angel, Death, all releasing like really great albums. But then a lot of people would just forget that there was bands before that releasing albums. And this is definitely one that needs to be in your collection. And I've mentioned that before, and it's the truth. It needs to be in your collection. And of course, Dismember re-recorded Torn Apart for their Pieces EP. And yeah, I like the re-recorded version. I like both versions. I like the version on here and I like the version on Pieces, but what I listen to the most when I'm on my walk sometimes is Torn Apart. Or like I'm gonna put on one of my favorite death metal songs. I'll put on Torn Apart. These guys, along with all the other bands from Sweden, that Stockholm sound, that chainsaw, buzzsaw, the chainsaw guitar tone. That defines Swedish death metal, definitely. For the Stockholm scene, of course, Gothenburg has all the melodic death metal bands such as At the Gates, Dark Tranquillity, In Flames when they were more on the melodic side. And those are the best albums in my opinion. But when I got into them, into them before I knew about Lunar Strain and Jester Race, but I digress. But when I was looking for more Swedish death metal bands, when I first heard Entombed, I was like, well, who else can I listen to? So there's Dismember, Grave, Unleashed, and then I found Carnage, Carbonized, General Surgery, Tiamat, just looking at the Metallum page, Grotesque, which obviously was pre At the Gates. And, but like I said, this band formed around the same time as Dismember. They did start off as a grindcore band before that, but obviously when you hear this, I was like, well, you hear the demo, The Day Man Lost, that is more of a grindcore release. Taking influences from bands such as Repulsion and Napalm Death, and like two of the biggest grindcore bands, definitely those two. Maybe some Carcass in there, like obviously Recaputrefaction. When you hear this, it's evil. It is nasty. And that's what I love about a lot of the Swedish death metal albums. A lot of the Swedish death metal bands, especially stuff like this, because it's always evil sounding. And of course, a lot of it's very punky. You can definitely get like punkier type of riffs, especially when you hear Entombed's Left Hand Path, which came out the same year as this. Of course, that's an earache release. Yeah, you hear albums like that, even in like an ever flowing stream, you hear that as well. Like I mentioned in Dismember, because obviously there's three members of Dismember in this band. It's it's just a phenomenal album, which I don't think a lot of you who are getting into death metal don't know about, because you probably found obviously you either found or a friend of yours said check out Cannibal Corpse. That's what happened with me. And then I was like, well, I want to expand that, and I tend to listen to more um albums like this now, and the more just more on the HM2 side, or just that really dirty cavernous sound. It's kind of cavernous, especially when you hear uh Infestation of Evil. Like it's very like when it gets that slow part, and like obviously that's what you're seeing in you know the Centuries of Darkness bit, and then it goes into like that demonic voice later on. Very, it's just one of my favorite releases, not just of 1990, but in general, because it. I mean, there'll be bands out there that could try and replicate it, but there's only going to be one Dark Recollections, and it's this by Carnage. And I'm glad I found these guys, and the same with all the other bands that I'll be mentioning on my Metal Vault, because I got a list here. It's still ever growing, which I will need. Just looking at my notes here, what I need to do another page of all the other albums I'll be showing. You know, just as underground as this. Even some well-known ones are going to come in here, because I was looking like, what else can I show that came out in the 80s and 90s? Obviously, this was going to be on the top of that list, and there's so many more here. I got it ranging from mainly death metal. One who's death doom. I'm gonna get some more on the ways of heavy metal and more, more on the heavy metal side. More, sludge and other things. But my number one favorite genre within metal is death metal. Is more so this. Again, going back to the HM2 sound, I actually do have a HM2 pedal in my guitar over there, which I need to get back out and play again. I just love that sound. Turn it all the way up. You got that nasty chainsaw ridden guitar sound. And when you hear this from start to finish, it's intense. It gives you a chill down your spine, and and there's a lot of bands not just from Sweden but from Finland and here in the UK, America, Germany, France are doing that HM2 sound, and to me, there's a lot of them that do it justice. And I have no doubt in my mind a lot of them would have been influenced by Carnage and Entombed, and obviously Dismember, again the members, Grave, and so on and so forth, all the Stockholm bands. I know these guys formed in a different part of Sweden, but later moved to Stockholm, because I think half of them lived there anyway. But guys, do check out this album. If you love your death metal, and I mean you love it underground, you love your old school death metal, And I mean your old school death metal. I don't mean brutal death. I don't mean slam death. I don't mean technical death. I do like a lot of technical death metal bands. But the ones that what I love the most is more old school. If you love your old school death metal, you're still looking for a new band, this is the one for you. So once again, this is Carnage and Dark Recollections. Highly recommended. You will not be disappointed. And to all your veterans who knew about this album, yeah, you know how good it is. I know how good it is. But for all you newcomers, get it. Carnage, Dark Recollections. And that is it for another episode of my Metal Vault. I hope you enjoyed the 12th episode of this series. Of course, the first video of mine of this year. More Metal Vault videos to come. I'm going to be still doing a list because I will be probably doing that a bit later on after I had some food because I didn't get up until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Of course, seeing some mates at my favourite pub. So yeah, more to come. Of course, my favourite death metal albums will still be continuing. That reminds me, I'll go through my list again. I'm gonna message a few more guests that I got in mind that I would love to be on the chat. And that's it. So thank you very much again for all the support, for watching my videos, liking them, sharing them, subscribing, commenting on them. It means a lot. I know you put that in the description, but I'll say it here as well. If you do enjoy my content, please do like, share, comment down below if you have anything to comment, and subscribe for more like this, because I have a lot more underground releases here, underground well-known releases as well. So I've been Jacob Jake's Metal Chat. You keep that banner of metal held high, and I'll see you all in the next one.